Welcome and thank you for joining our Beach Read Bash. Today's event is a collaboration between A Mighty Blaze and the Newburyport Literary Festival. I'm Jennifer Entwistle and I'm the co-director of the Newburyport Lit Fest. Now, before COVID, we hosted an in-person festival in Newburyport, Massachusetts on the last weekend of April every year. So we do look forward to gathering again in person, hopefully next year. But in the meantime, I'm really thrilled that we're able to celebrate reading and have this beach bash online with all these authors. So before we begin, I just want to mention a couple of housekeeping items. We are in the webinar version of Zoom. That means that we can't see or hear the audience, but there is the chat mechanism, and you'll see that at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. So please feel free to use the chat to make comments and have a conversation throughout the panel. But we do ask that you use the Q&A button that's also on your toolbar to submit any questions to the panelists, because Jenna will take a few minutes at the end of this session to do some questions from the audience. So please submit them through Q&A. And my last housekeeping piece is just asking people to please consider buying the books at an independent bookseller. They need our support now more than ever. We have a partner bookseller from the Newburyport Literary Festival, which is the Bookshop of Beverly Farms. And so I'm going to put that link in the chat for everyone in case you'd like to go there to buy the books for today. So with that being said, it's time to start our Summer Lovin' panel. And our moderator today is Jenna Paone. She is an author, songwriter, and Cape Codder, currently at work on her first novel. She's also a media and special events producer and on-air host for A Mighty Blaze, which is an all-volunteer team of writers founded by Jenna Blum and Caroline Levitt to help other writers who are publishing during the time of COVID. Jenna, take it away.
Thank you so much, Jen, and thank you to the Newburyport Literary Festival and to our whole team at A Mighty Blaze for making today happen. And of course, most importantly, thank you and welcome to our authors. Hi, ladies. How are you?
Hi. Good.
I am just so thrilled that you're all here with me today. I can't thank you enough for taking some time out on this beautiful Saturday, and to all of our attendees. I know we're all spending a lot of time online, and I'm just so excited about this. This is so fun. Without further ado, I'm going to start the introductions, and I am going to not give everyone's bios because that would take a long time. These women are all incredibly accomplished and incredibly worth checking out. So I hope you check out their websites and their social media and everything that we're posting in the comments. And I'm just going to introduce them and their books, and then I'm going to let them tell you about their books. So first up, we have Aimee Agresti, who's is the author of The Somerset, which is out now. Yay!
Yay.
We have Emily Henry, who is the author of Beach Read. Woo! I love that cover. We have Priscilla Oliveras, who is the author of Island Affair, which is like the best color ever of that cover. Like, oh, that just makes you want to go to the beach. And we have Nancy Thayer, who is a legend. I mean, we all know who Nancy, if you read anything about the beach and you don't know who Nancy Thayer is, I'm just so grateful to you for being here. Nancy Thayer, author of her latest of a zillion books, Girls of Summer. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you guys all so much for being here. I'm going to go in alphabetical order, and we're just going to start with give me the 30-second elevator pitch about your book. What's your book about? And let's get the conversation going. Aimee, let's start with you.
Right. Well, I'm the author of The Somerset. This is about an actress named Charlie Savoy, who was a Hollywood it girl, and then she flamed out. And when we meet her at the beginning of the book, she's almost 40 years old. And she's gotten into kind of a legal scrape, and she's forced to go back to the Summer Shakespeare Theater, where she got her start as a teen and where her ex, Nick, is the artistic director. So drama and hilarity ensue, but it's really a book about, old friends, old flames, old rivals, and second acts starting over.
Oh, I love that. Second acts. Oh, that's some clever wordplay right there. That's some book jacket wordplay.
Yeah, thank you.
Emily, how about you take it away?
Yeah, so Beach Read is the story of January Andrews, who's a romance novelist who recently has lost her father. And in the wake of his death, she finds out that he had a mistress and a second home on Lake Michigan, and all these things that really challenge her worldview and her belief in love. So she has not been able to write for a year since her father passed away, and she learned this damning information. She's running out of money. She has broken up with her boyfriend. Everything's kind of come crashing down, and her last resort is to go stay at this secret beach house that her father had with his mistress to try to finish writing a love story for her publisher. And once she moves in, she realizes that her next door neighbor is her college rival, Gus Everett, who's gone on to have this like literary wonderkind career, very well reviewed, adored. And they always have had sort of a contentious relationship, and they make a bet that they can each write in each other's genres. So they swap for the summer, and whoever sells their book first basically wins bragging rights and promo and support from the other author.
Oh, I love it. It's such a juicy hook. Like, it's like you can already picture the movie. And Priscilla, tell us about Island Affair, please.
So Island Affair, I'm worried if I pick it up. First, real quickly, my firstborn is here, and so she's like saying, "Hi, Mom." So I need to say hi. So, but Island Affair is book 1 in my Keys to Love series. They're all set in Key West, where I grew up junior high and high school and early adult years. Home was Key West. So I'm super excited to like take readers home with me. It's kind of, when I pitched the series, it's kind of like a mashup of it's a familia drama. I write contemporary romance with Latinx characters. So you'll meet the Navarro familia. They're Cubans, second and third generations in Key West. And so it's kind of like a mashup of This Is Us and Blue Bloods. If Blue Bloods were PD, we're FD instead of PD, because the Navarro familia, all 4 siblings and their papi are all firefighter paramedics in the Keys. And this one also has the fake relationship trope. So kind of like the little elevator pitch would be when a savvy social media influencer, who is our heroine, Sarah Vance, arrives in Key West to find that she's been stood up by her loser boyfriend just in time for a family vacation with her judgmental family and siblings. She kind of is always the odd man out. So she runs into Luis, who is a firefighter paramedic with a severe savior complex. He's a really good guy, but he thinks he's got to save everyone except for he needs to be saving himself, and that's kind of his issue. So Luis agrees to fill in and be her fake boyfriend for the week of her family vacation. So it's kind of, will their romance last or will it fade like the stunning sunset?
Ooh, this book jacket cover.
Yes.
I love it. Nancy, tell us about Girls of Summer.
I don't think I can take it off the bookshelf without everything falling. This is the cover. Girls of Summer is about Lisa Hawley, who's 56, and she falls in love with her carpenter, Mac, who is 46. And that's really interesting, but Lisa has a son named Theo, who's a kind of cool super surf dude guy, and he is in love with this lovely woman named Beth, who happens to be the daughter of Mac. So you've got the parents, Mac is widowed, Lisa's divorced, they've known each other on the island, but now they're like really interested in each other, and they have a lot of little challenges when Mac and Lisa are walking down the street and they run into Theo and Beth kissing, or vice versa. And I've thrown in a little bit about the challenges on the island of rising water, which Priscilla in Key West must be aware of. So I have a really cool, smart guy named Ryder Hastings who comes down to start a chapter of his group called Ocean Matters. And he falls in love with Juliet, who is Lisa's daughter. And Ryder is 10 years older than Juliet. So there are a lot of age differences here. And we all believe that it's okay for a younger woman to be with an older man. But what's going to happen if you turn that around?
I love that. I love the web. I love that. And we're going to get to that because I want to talk about how we're going to have a discussion about how important and valuable these books are, and how much I love them, and how we're going to talk about that later. But first, we're going to do a little fun stuff, which is, here's the thing. Summer romance, like summer love. What is it about the idea of a vacation romance or a romance in the summer or a romance somewhere where it's hot that is so much hotter overall? What do you think it is that makes these particular relationships, and the relationship in the book that you're writing right now, like what is it about these, or multiple in Nancy's case, what about this relationship or relationships is so fun to write? And let's start with Priscilla.
Oh, goodness.
Sorry.
I thought you said alphabetical order, so I was like, oh, good. I'm good.
No, now we're not going alphabetically.
I think part of like the vacation, I'll stick with Luis and Sarah. Like, well, Luis is home and he's not expecting at all a romance. But for Sarah, I think about maybe the appeal maybe to me as a reader would be, and then that kind of goes with me as a writer, because I write kind of what I would like to be reading. I think the vacation romance, it's that meeting someone that like your paths are crossing and in a unique place or in a unique way, like kind of outside of your normal, or your normal life. It's also a little bit of, if you're on vacation, you're like letting your hair down, that's what I think anyway when I'm going on a vacation. So really the idea of really letting your hair down, of really being open to something that totally unexpected, typically is what happens in these kind of books. So I think to me, that's the appeal as a reader and a writer of a vacation romance, of the unexpected happening. And there's going to be some bad, because obviously there has to be some conflict, but in a lot more good ways. So it's a little bit more titillating.
Yeah. Nancy, let's go with you, because you've got age differences, and you've also got this web, and it's set in Nantucket, which is a small place where everybody knows each other. And if you've got a local family, they're there, like there's nowhere you can go. You're surrounded by water. So like, that ups the stakes majorly in my mind. What about these was so fun for you to write?
Well, I think when people come to Nantucket or go on any vacation, you get away from your family, you get away from your friends, you get away from people who know who you are and what you do and don't do. And suddenly you're on the island. We see this all the time, believe me, because our population goes from 20,000 to 50,000. And people are happy to be here. That's the very first thing. People are happy. They're coming on vacation because they're gonna be happy. They're gonna try a dry martini. They're gonna like wear a bikini, and it's exciting. And your parents aren't there to say, oh, I don't know about that. And your old boyfriend isn't there. And there are all these wonderful new people that you meet. I think it's getting away from other people's expectations about who you are.
Oh, I love that. Emily, how about you? You have such a unique relationship at the core of this novel. The whole concept is, as a friend of mine likes to describe in our writer's workshop, the fat hook that just like pulls you in right from the start. What about this idea do you think is so fun?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what Nancy and Priscilla have already said is very true to me as a writer as well. But I think another aspect of it is that it's very finite. And when you're setting a book over the course of a summer or a couple of weeks or 1 week of vacation or anything like that, I think the fact that it's this finite amount of time kind of gives the characters permission to really fully like let go of their lives at home, of the expectations like Nancy was saying. And it kind of just creates also like a pressure cooker. And we're talking about what it is about summer. And I think summer, again, like just the fact of the heat is sort of creating this pressure cooker environment where the atmosphere itself is sort of like this own brand of tension that I think bleeds really well into romantic and sexual tension. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons that I think that we tend toward this like summer lovin' trend. But yeah, I think the idea of it being this short little chunk of time is very, very juicy to me. And I think that the characters kind of let themselves get swept up away more because they know that there's like this end in sight, this like hard deadline. And there doesn't feel like there's as much risk maybe. Maybe that's kind of like the root of it. You can put yourself out there and you're like, well, this isn't anything. Like, I don't need to worry about this or how this ends. It's a week, it's a summer, whatever.
That's such a good point. And Aimee, like you have another layer of this in that you're dealing with people who are acting. Like, can you talk a little bit about that? Does that come into play?
Yeah, definitely. And I totally agree with what everybody said also about it being a finite amount of time and everyone's letting their hair down. It's so true. There's such a different vibe to summertime that just makes everyone sort of be a little bit different version of themselves. And in my book, everyone is really a different version than themselves inside because they're all a bunch of actors and they are acting as much in their real lives as they are on stage. They all have this persona that they want to, you know, project to everybody. And we're in a bunch of different heads in my book so that you can see what's really going on inside because what they're projecting to everybody is totally not what's really happening. You know, inside there's turmoil and they're not sure of things, but outside they're cool. Some of them are celebrities. So yeah, I think, you know, you can try to kind of get into different skin and a different zone in the summer.
Yep.
And I think that, yeah, we let our hair down, like you guys said.
Yeah, we do. Definitely. I mean, yes, I would launch into like making everybody tell me about their own personal summer love story, but Priscilla's daughter's here, so we're not going to go there, ladies.
She's an adult.
Yeah.
All my girls are adulting off in the world.
When you say daughter, I don't know, you don't
Yeah,
know.
no, they're all 25 and older.
You not want to hear, too much.
She's of age.
Yes. Okay, good. So instead, let's talk about, in writing this book, what was the kernel of the idea? Because obviously you're all writing, setting is so strong, location is so strong, time is so strong, community is so strong, character is so strong. What came first for you? Was it, I want to write about this relationship and it just makes sense that this should take place in the summer in this place? Or, I am going to talk, like I set my books here and this is what characters could populate my worlds. I'd love to hear where the idea started. And let's start with you, Emily. Sorry, I'm not pointing. You can't see me.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I still sensed that it was a point for me. I definitely feel like my books tend to come together as a conflation of just a lot of different things that I'm thinking about that all just suddenly intersect and make sense. But the origin story of Beach Read is very straightforward, more so than anything else I've ever written. I wanted to read a book set on Lake Michigan, basically. I wanted like this summery romance on the lake, and I didn't really know how to find the exact book that I wanted to read. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I should write that book. That sounds fun. It sounds fun to just immerse myself in a light, fun, summery story in a place that I love. But I had actually no ideas at all for characters, for anything beyond setting. And I just really, really, really wanted to be working. I just turned in a different book and was just desperate to get back to the grind because I'm a workaholic. And I was doing the thing where I just lay on the floor and groan, waiting for an idea to come to me. And eventually I just was like, well, I don't have any ideas. I have horrible writer's block right now. Maybe I should just write about writer's block. So that's why the book feels so meta. It was very meta. I basically decided I'll write a book about writer's block and maybe that will help me figure out where to go. So I just created a character who was a writer who had writer's block. And then from there, I basically just asked myself questions about what would give this other person who was not me writer's block. And the first thing that came to mind for writing a romance set on Lake Michigan was, well, she should be a romance writer. And it was kind of an easy, downhill, experience from there of just coasting. It's so easy to ask why someone else would have writer's block. It's much harder for yourself. But yeah, it just made sense. It's like, if she's a romance writer, then obviously her belief in love has to have been shaken. Yep. And beyond that, her relationship has ended. Her father was not the romantic husband to her mother that she believed he was. And just, things that I have experienced, if you're on deadline, sometimes that gives you writer's block because somebody is actually waiting for what you're supposed to be turning in. So she needed to kind of be on deadline and really need the money desperately. So everything was just about creating obstacles for her, and it was way too easy.
I love that. And I love what you said about trying to find, like, I can't tell you how many times I've Googled such specific things of like books set on in this exact place on this thing because I want to read a book because I'm going there, or, you know, and I assume you have a personal connection to Lake Michigan.
I went to college in Western Michigan, and my family is from the West Coast, and I grew up in the Midwest, and I hadn't ever really spent any time at any of the Great Lakes, and I just fell in love with Lake Michigan, and it's now my favorite body of water. And it just has such a distinctive feel because it's very much like beach town vibes, but only for like 3 months a year because the rest of the year it's freezing.
Yeah. No, I love Lake Michigan. It's such a beautiful place. I'm gonna move on to someone else because talking about sense of place, we cannot not talk about you, Nancy. We can't talk about you without thinking Nantucket. I mean, I hear the name Nancy Thayer, and I assume your book is going to be on Nantucket, maybe unfairly, but I think that's, you know, such a good, that's a good indicator of your branding is on point. And I know not all of your books have always been set on Nantucket, but recently that's the trend. Are you always continually inspired by this place that you call home? Is that where you always start every one of your stories? Or do all of your stories just happen to make sense that they end up on Nantucket?
Well, I came to Nantucket about 37 years ago. And I came because a friend insisted that I come. I lived in Williamstown, Mass. I was divorced. I had 2 little children. And I was planning to get a horse because I didn't have some big person in my life. And so my friend Dinah said, come to Nantucket. There's a guy who has a television show, a local TV show, Charlie. And I'll introduce you to him, and he'll interview you, and you can deduct your flight and your travel, whatever. And I came, and I married Charlie 2 years later. And yeah, I know. And I've
lived one of your own stories.
Yeah,
it's actually a Nancy Thayer novel.
It is. And here's the thing about Girls of Summer and what inspired it. I love Meghan Markle. I love her so much. And I love that she married Prince Harry, and she is 3 years older than he is.
Yep.
And I am 7 years older than my husband.
Awesome.
And I just really like that theme. And Nantucket is it's so inspiring because nature is inspiring. The town, the history, but the people who come here are very fascinating, very savvy, very smart, very cultured, and we have wonderful parties. People have wonderful parties. So that is inspiring for part of the book. But the other thing that happened that inspired me, that is real, is that we have a house that was built in 1840, like Lisa's house. And we're always working on it, repairing it. And I was sitting in the dining room one day, and part of the dining room ceiling fell on my head.
Oh my God.
As soon as it hit, I thought, oh, that's such a good idea, because
Would not have been my first thought.
Oh my gosh.
Most author thing I ever heard.
That's hysterical.
so that was the start.
What,
That is really funny.
one of our commenters, my friend Julie Gerstenblatt, said the idea literally hit you over the head. That's awesome. That's so fun. Oh my gosh, what a great story of how that came to you. How about you, Aimee? Do you have a theater background? Is this like, did this world appeal to you? How did this come about?
Oh, I know. I mean, anyone who saw me in How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying at Sherwood High School when I was a senior would know that I'm terrible.
It's in your blood.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I don't belong on the stage for sure. But I always loved the theater world. And before writing books, I worked at magazines for a long time at Us Weekly and at Premiere Magazine before that. So I always really loved that whole world of Hollywood and celebrity. And it's funny that Nancy has a Williamstown connection, because my book is set in Williamstown, Massachusetts. And I'd always, as a theater buff, I'd always been super obsessed with the Williamstown Theater Festival.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's never done.
I love the Williamstown Theater Festival. I
great.
have a background in theater, and I love Williamstown and love it's great.
It's so exciting. It's true. And I always loved the idea that they have these, huge stars who come back for the summer. And then alongside of them working backstage are these apprentices who are, college kids who are learning the craft. And I always love when worlds are colliding like that. So I had that idea for a really long time. All my ideas tend to percolate for a really long time. And then I always knew, I spent so long covering Hollywood and things that I always knew I wanted to write something about an actress who everyone sort of thought they knew what she was about and that she was just, a troublemaker and things, but there's a lot more going on there, and really sort of delving into what her character was like. So
that's so great. Thank you so much. That's awesome. And Priscilla, you're in Florida, right? So I assume you're inspired by your surroundings. Is that the thing that always drives you? I know you do write about this family, right? So your books, a lot of your books recently are connected through that.
Well, this series, usually I write series. My debut series was all set in Chicago, in and around Chicago, like a fictional town. But this, because I've always wanted to set a book in Key West, having grown up there. I'll say my first romance, which no one will ever see because it was my first romance ever written, was set in Key West, and it's wrong for a whole bunch of reasons. But so I knew I always wanted to take readers home with me, and I think so. Typically, it's a character that comes to me when I want to start. Like with the Match Perfection series, it was Yasmin, and then just in talking with her, she's got 2 sisters, and it kind of grows from there. This idea for the Keys to Love, it was, I want to set a book in Key West. Like what could be a good story? A good romance trope is somebody in a uniform, a lead character. And my older sister and I went to high school with a group. There are 5 brothers, and 4 of them and some of their extended familia are all firefighters in the Keys. And so, our families were close, so I'm still in contact with them. And then you just start asking that question that all authors do: what if, right? So I didn't want 4 brothers, right? I wanted Ana Maria. I wanted them to have a sister. Like she's book 2, and so just. It was, so for this series, it was kind of a conglomeration of, I wanted to go home. I wanted to be home. And I knew I kind of like that romance trope, and then just kind of digging, finding out more about the family, because I think someone asked about why do I want to write about Latinx? Why do I write Latinx romance? And because I want to see people like me, and I want to see familias like mine. And my world is a mix. So my books are a mix. I will say Keys to Love is not own romance. If you've seen that hashtag own romance, my first series is because my mom's from Puerto Rico. So I'm Puerto Riqueña. My dad's Tejano, like Tex-Mex from San Antonio. And so my first series, the Fernandez sisters, are all Puerto Riqueñas. So that's own voices. But to be true to the Key West that I grew up in, it's a predominantly large Cuban community. So the Navarro familia had to be Cuban for me, I felt, to be authentic. So it's not own voices, but it is, Latinx romance because of the Latinidad of the family. But so like an answer to that question that someone had posted here, I write Latinx romance because that's my world. And I think it's important for for everybody to see part of themselves somehow at some point, on the shelves.
Right. And don't we all, feel gravitated to write what I know I certainly feel gravitated to write to what is natural and home and to me, and what I like, that's everyone. And that's such an important point. And on that note, I want to bring up the idea that, and I say this is the world I write in as well. I write women's fiction. I write, beach centric. I write fun, happy, joyful stories. And there's a huge misconception, I think, with a lot of people in the literary world and beyond, that art to be taken seriously needs to be somehow depressing or sad, or it can't contain moments of joy and romance, and that anything that is romance or joy is inherently somehow less intelligent or less. And that is, clearly listening to any of you talk for 30 seconds, everybody would know how smart and incredibly skilled you are. And I feel this as well. And this is such a frustration of mine, which is where this question comes from. But why is writing in this genre appealing and valuable to you? And why do you think these books are so important. And I'm going to let Aimee start that one. Sorry.
Tough one. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I got the tough question.
Okay,
Why?
go.
I'm gonna bring out my coconut drink for this because
Yeah,
you guys have me caught here.
that was like the best.
This
That's
is a woman
great.
you take seriously.
Yeah.
You
With
know,
the
I mean,
coconut
this
drink.
whole thing, I mean, if you don't get serious
Yeah,
and
serious
depressing from
vibes.
me, I don't know what to do here.
I love it.
That's
But
incredible.
yeah, you
That's
know,
funny.
I mean, one of my very, very favorites is Nora Ephron, you know,
yeah.
and I mean, there's somebody who, I mean, was a genius. I mean, we all love everything that she's put out into the world and they make us feel good. And they're also really brilliant stories. I mean, something that can touch that many people and people want to watch it again and want to hang out with those characters again and again. There's something incredibly special about that. I don't know, for some reason, I do think sometimes people are like, I'm having too much fun reading something. It must be something wrong with it. But, you know, I don't know. I'm writing happy endings until the world calms down, I feel like, right? I mean, that's what I'm
Yes.
craving as a reader right now. Like, I can't wait for all of your books to arrive. I've ordered them all.
Same.
You guys, I wish we were together so you could sign them all for me. But this is like what I'm in the mood for right now. And and I know these are all, you know, great writers here. And I'm lucky you guys are putting these stories into the world right now. That's for sure.
I love that answer so much. Priscilla, how about you? We're going back to you.
Sure. I think like within the romance genre, a lot of my friends, we like to think of it as the genre of hope.
Yes.
Right. And so I love that aspect of it. I think a romance novel to me, a well-written romance novel is a depiction of like of healthy relationships and how crap happens in life. But if you're surrounded by the right, you know, the right people and you're supportive of them and they are of you, then like you get through it. And so to me, the whole literary versus genre fiction, I feel like a genre that celebrates like at our essence, we all want to be loved, right? And we want to give love. And so if there's a genre that celebrates and depicts that on the page for readers, then why would that not be part of a literary collection? You know, it's like humanity at its most basic. And that's what we celebrate within our books. So
these are such good answers. See, like, I just want to like post this video whenever somebody like, I just want to be like, here.
Yeah, here, watch this. Yeah.
This will help you. Your life is about to get better.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Emily, you confront this head on in your book. Your whole book concept is about confronting this. I mean, you have this friction between these two characters that, you know, and I love, without giving, I don't want to give anything away, but there's a moment of acknowledgement from the man that is like so cool of like, okay, like, I'm going to let you talk about this. But,
Yeah. I mean, I came from, before this, I was writing young adult fiction, and there's a big similarity between that and women's fiction and romance as far as how it's treated by outsiders, by people who don't read those genres or categories. And there's this assumption that what you're doing is sort of like, lesser than, and that maybe it's even a cash grab, which is funny because those people clearly don't know what publishing pays. But yeah, I've experienced that because I was in the young adult world. I told, this actually made it into this book, but I remember when I sold my first book, I told a friend of a friend, like, yeah, I sold my first book. It's a young adult book. He was asking like, what's it about? And I was describing it. And he said to me, well, whatever pays the bills. Right. And I was like, so shocked. I don't think I said anything back. And then I immediately felt embarrassed, like I should be embarrassed of what I do. And then later I felt embarrassed that I hadn't stood up for what I do. But yeah, I think there's so much that goes into it. And I think the biggest thing is that girls are traditionally socialized to really value their relationships and their feelings and to think a lot about them, to understand them, to talk to their friends about them and to their partners and their families. And, you know, I think in general, like emotional intelligence is more valued for girls. And I think because of that, in the past, books have largely been dominated by male voices and the things that men are taught to think about and care about and value. And so I think that there's a fair amount of misogyny to it. I think the idea is like, this is like women's terrain. And that's very sad because a lot of people who aren't women would love romance if they gave it a shot. It's like Priscilla was saying, like, love is the most basic human like need that's not physical. and it's such an important part of life and is sort of like the reason for everything as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are missing out because of this socialization where they're almost taught to like fear this thing and think that it's like very silly, and that reading about emotions is like silly. I mean, I don't know who all here remembers like reading The Old Man and the Sea and having that held up as like the peak of what literature can be. And it's like a man fishing for 200 pages and feeling nothing about it the whole time, just feeling nothing. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I want to get swept up in a story, and for that, I really need to know the characters and feel their emotions. And romance and women's fiction really values that. That's the whole like conceit of the genre, is like, welcome to this inner world of this person.
Mm-hmm. This is so well said. And Nancy, I have to, as we throw this over to you, I have to point out that you're like one of the pioneers of this genre. I mean, like, you are one of the people who really, when you think of major names that started this, did you set out with like sort of these ideas of you know, I want to do this in my way, and like I want to write the book that I want to read? Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and why you love this so much?
What Emily said is so right. I always wanted to write about families and friends, and I never wanted to write like Hemingway.
Yeah.
And the thing is, as families, as human beings on the earth, it's really hard sometimes. You know, it's really hard. And if you have a sick child, it's night and day and night and day. And my first book that was published before everyone else was born came out in 1980, and it was called Stepping. It was about being a stepmother. I lived in Williamstown. The owner of the bookstore said, I overheard him say this when I was in another row of the store, "Oh, Nancy's book, I put in the dirty diaper fiction shelf literature, the dirty diaper shelf." And then the book was reviewed in the New York Times Book Review. And I wanted so much to go in and say, "You cad, look what."
You should have.
I was going to say, I wish you did.
Yeah.
Nancy, you're classier than I am.
Just on Zoom, I'm classier. I've gone through, it's gone into like women's fiction. And then my first agent said, you're right on the line between literary and commercial. Literary and commercial. And then, well, I want to be both, but I really want to be not commercial, but I want a happy ending. And I don't want to write about war. I don't want to write about terrible traumas with children. I've raised 2 children. I have 5 grandchildren. I want happy endings. And I think now our books, all of our books, are called beach reads. And the covers are beautiful, and they call to you, and you know you're going to read it and have an experience with an intelligent character that you can relate to, who is going to have a tough time, but is going to get through it.
Right.
So I think romance is probably, you know, I'm just going to say this. I think we're in an age right now, especially where we like to characterize and stereotype and layer things, and like literary is up here and romance is down here. And we like to do that with every field. And I really don't like that. I think we're writing novels. And I've ordered all your books too, and I can't wait to read, because it will open up worlds to me. And I know your characters, even though I'm older, your characters will be like me in a way.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to note that, you know, especially like Nancy, one of the things you do too is you write about older women. You write older women characters, which is important. Like, it's so important for me to, like, I grew up in the entertainment industry, and by grew up, I mean, I worked in that world for the first 12 years of my career before switching to this. And all I've been hearing since I was 18 years old is that I'm too old. you know, and that is like, and it's an insane thing, but the idea that life doesn't stop at 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, like, you know, that like you can go your whole life and still you can be 95 years old and like you're still a person, you still have feelings. And I just want to say, you know, thank you for doing that, because that is so important for me. And, you know, I think it's important, Priscilla, what you're doing too. And, you know, every writer to write their experience and to write for readers. Readers are not all 20 years old. Like they're not all one type of skin color.
Right.
They're not all one gender, you know, like this is like, it's so important to get these stories out. So ladies, that was like that, you just like hit that out of the park. I could have, we could go on forever talking about this very topic, and I might do that at some point because that sounds really fun. But right now we're gonna get a little bit into another little juicy thing. We don't have too much time left. I promise I will get to some questions from the chat. I'm getting them. But first I want to talk about, we are humans and we are awkward and feelings are awkward. And I'm sorry, I didn't send you guys this question, but this is like something I'm thinking about. So think of your answers. But it's kind of hard. Like it's real. And by kind of hard, I mean, it's incredibly hard to write a love scene, a scene where somebody admits their feelings, a sex scene, a scene where emotions are strong. It is one of the hardest things in the world to pull off and not make it sound cheesy or trite or, you know, whatever. So, and it's definitely something that I think is one of the most challenging things for writers of all genres. And you ladies are the experts on this. So I would like to start, and we're going to go back to Nancy because I think you're the only one I haven't started a question off with, and I'm sorry to put you in the hot seat again, but let's go right back to you.
I love writing sex scenes. I love reading sex scenes, just like I love reading scenes about cooking. And my husband has said to me, your people eat a lot. And so who doesn't? And I mean, sex is so basic and so mysterious. And I have two children who, when they were about 12, would go to the sex scenes in my books. They wouldn't read the whole book. They just wanted to read the sex scenes. I also had a very, very, not pious, but proper mother-in-law who lived 2 blocks away from me. And she was very upset she read one of my books that had sex in it. And she was very upset about that. I think it's, but everybody loves sex. If sex is part of love or that connection, doesn't have to be deep, lasting love, but it can be, hey, and then everything wakes up. Your body wakes up, your mind wakes up. So I love writing them and I love reading them. So I can't wait to read all the sex.
I love it.
That's a great answer.
Aimee, you want to chime in on that?
My goodness. I mean, you know, I'll have what she's having.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I mean, I agree. I love writing banter. So I love writing like the scenes that lead up to that so much, where it's like they're in a room talking and it's like boom, 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 boom with the talking, and like, you know, it's leading to something. So like, I like setting them up, and then I tend to maybe leave a little more of the imagination sometimes, you know, but I really love the banter where you know it's headed somewhere.
Yes, I'm into that. Emily, how about you on that? There's a lot of literary banter. I love I want to bring up, there's a moment in Emily's book, or it's many moments, but there's a thing you return to of your characters posting signs to each other through their windows, which is like so sexy and cool. And it's like instant message without the technology,
It's
which is like
quarantine communication.
What do you think on all this?
Yeah, I really agree with both Aimee and Nancy. I love writing banter. I love writing dialogue in general. I always have to cut so much dialogue because I could just have characters talk for 400 pages easily. Like that's the thing that I'm like most excited about. But I also agree that like, I love reading sex scenes. I love writing sex scenes, but I do kind of have to convince myself no one will read it while I'm writing it. I have to kind of convince myself like, this is like just something that I'm writing in my journal that no one's ever going to read. Because I think you have to allow yourself to get swept up. And I think with writing romance in general, oh, we have someone, I'm not getting that. Someone just rang our doorbell. Yeah, I think with romance in general, as a reader and a writer, it's so much of it is about allowing yourself to get swept up and having that vulnerability and like accepting that there's going to be awkwardness and embarrassment and all of that. And I think that's what makes it such a beautiful reading experience and such a, I don't know, just such a pleasant thing to just like really give yourself over to a story in that way. And I think when you're writing that, you kind of have to forget that anyone's going to be reading it, or at least I do, because falling in love is embarrassing. Like you don't really want to have people overhearing your banter, your flirtation, all of that is just sort of, it's a very vulnerable position to be in. So yeah, I mean, I love to read it, love to write it, do kind of have to do some mental gymnastics to really preserve the integrity of that. And you were saying something about how do you like make it not come across as cheesy or trite? And I think that's kind of impossible. I think some readers are always going to think it's cheesy and trite because you're looking in on someone else's love story. And that's an embarrassing thing to witness, kind of.
Because love is at its core, love turns us all into mush.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's so right that it's, you know, and that was probably the wrong wording, because like, I agree with you that I don't know if it's possible. Like you have to.
Yeah, some people will certainly think that, oh, this like book wasn't cheesy and trite, and I love that. But you know, anybody, all you have to ever do is look on Goodreads and see the reviews that are the exact opposite thing. You know, like one person like the dialogue was horrible, the next person the dialogue was amazing. It's the same thing with the views on the romance and the sex scenes. It's always, you know, you're gonna have people who connect to it and people who don't.
Yep. Priscilla, what are your thoughts on this? I suspect you're an expert.
What?
I suspect you're an expert sex scene writer.
Oh my gosh. Actually, no, I do a lot of closed door. So like it leads up to,
nice.
And then, but it's not, someone asked me once, like in my debut, there's not even a sex scene. And I didn't realize that until I was done. And it was just, because for me, a sex scene, it needs, if you could take a sex scene out of your book and nothing changes, then it's gratuitous and it shouldn't have been there to begin with. So it needs to be part of the process of their relationship in that. For me, even writing them, the way that helps me to like not be embarrassed or whatever is, it's all for me about the emotion. And if I am deeply in that point of view, in that character's point of view, and I'm trying to tap into what they're feeling, then whether it's like a sex scene or whether it's a foot rub or whether it's just a handhold, if the emotion is there and if, you know, then, and I'm getting that on the page or I'm feeling it, so I'm getting it on the page and hopefully the reader will feel it, then for me, it kind of takes away any embarrassment kind of, because I'm just trying to really be in that character's, you know, point of view. So if the emotion is there, are they excited? Are they nervous? Are they scared? Are they, you know, whatever it is, are they a conglomeration of all of that? If I can depict that in their actions and their visceral reactions and their, what they're fumbling, trying to say or whatever, then hopefully the reader is in that moment with the character as well. And it comes across. But so for me, it's really, even like I said, just holding hands, if it's at the right, or someone reaches, if you watch the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice, when that one scene where he helps her up into the cart, right, and then he's walking away and the camera zooms in and you see his hand flex, like to me that's a powerful, and they're not doing anything sexual, right, but you can tell that his emotion and what he's feeling, and then that evokes that same emotion in me as a viewer. So that's what I want to do for my reader. It doesn't matter what point in the book.
Such a great answer. These are all, you guys are amazing. This is so much fun. We are rapidly running out of time. I'm going to ask you a really fun one, which is if you could go on a romantic getaway with, and like, I know, like I'm married, it's cool. Like if you're partnered, you know, whatever, let's send the you know, the partner's out of the room right now. And if you could go on a romantic, if you were stuck on a desert island or on a romantic summer getaway with one character from either your book, or I'm going to open it up for all of literature too.
Ooh, oh wow.
I'm gonna give you
now
all
that's
of
playing hard.
literature.
That's hardball.
You can either lean into your book and tell us a little more about your book, or if there's somebody from literature, and I'm just gonna blanket say we all know we'd go with Mr. Darcy. Like,
yeah, that's sort of occurred to me too.
So other than Mr. Darcy,
Okay.
who would you go with? And who wants to start? Let's see. Who does anyone have an answer already?
I have one.
All right, Priscilla.
But I do want to say, Gail said over here that she's like excited to read my book to remember a long ago trip to Key West. And I would just say, Gail, that's my hope, is that I did a good enough job describing my Key West that if you feel like you're visiting it for the first time, or in your case, you're revisiting it. So I hope so. For me, my ultimate book boyfriend is Cosmo Richter from Suzanne Brockman's Hot Target. So I call dibs. No one else can take him. But if I was sticking closer to home and my heroes, I have a really hard time. I can't pick a best friend of any of my heroines. I just want to hang out with all of them. But my heroes, Luis and Diego is the hero in book 3, The Match to Perfection. It's their perfect melody. And Diego's Chicago PD, and he plays the classical Spanish guitar. So he like serenades Lily a couple times. I think Luis would be able to catch fish and know how to cook it and all that I don't know at all. So he'd be great if we were stuck on a deserted island. So I'm it's a toss up between Diego singing to me under the sky and under a starry night on a deserted island, or Luis cooking fish for me and making a shelter and
that sounds more useful.
Keeping me warm, you know.
Luis, from the practical standpoint, I think is your best bet.
Yeah. So I think I'm sticking with Luis.
I love
No
that.
offense to Alejandro, who I'm writing right now, but.
I love that. Nancy, how about you? From one of your many books or literature in general, do you have an answer?
Since we're going to be stuck on a desert island, I've thought about this, and I've thought, I'm going to choose Mac because he's a carpenter. He's handsome, he's sexy, he's a carpenter, and he could build us a hut on the desert island, where a lot of my guys couldn't. I mean, Theo is really handsome and sexy, but he's kind of a surfer dude, and Ryder is really handsome and sexy, but he's also really rich, so he probably doesn't have like a Swiss Army knife in his pocket that could like whittle a stick so we could fry our fish. But he's so Mac. I'm going with Mac.
I love that.
That's probably a smart choice. Yeah.
Emily, how about you?
This is so hard. I love so many heroes, but I don't know if I love any of them enough to be on a desert island with them, not even like from my own book. Because I'm just a huge, I don't know. I just think that'd be a hard sell.
It'd be a little much.
Yeah,
right?
it'd be a bit much. And also, like, I think I tend to like heroes who are maybe too much like me for real life situations. So I would almost say, having not read Nancy's latest, I do think Mac is a good bet. And going along with that, when I was thinking about this question, trying so hard to come up with someone, I actually thought, not from a book, but from a movie, Bill Pullman's character in While You Were Sleeping. Again, I love him so much. I find him so charming. And then on top of that, he is a carpenter. So there's, some practical elements to benefit from.
Oh, I love that. Aimee, how about you?
Well, I mean, once you took Mr. Darcy out of the running, I really am having a lot of trouble, frankly. But, that's tough.
Sorry.
That's my ultimate. And then, I mean, my first literary crush was Holden Caulfield, but I don't think I want to be stuck on an island with him. So I don't know, right? That would be like too intense. So I don't think that would work out very well. So I'm not sure. I mean, oh my gosh, I'm looking at the chat, and someone said Connell from Normal People, and now that's all I can think about, because I obviously binged that whole series. I read the book like 3 times. I'm like so obsessed with that. So Connell is kind of heavy also, but he's nice to look at if you're trapped on an island. Like that's gonna work fine for me.
Mine would be The Old Man in the Sea.
No,
because he'd have a boat.
Would you take the old man, or would you take the sea?
I'd take the
take the boat.
Yeah, take the
Take a boat. Yeah.
Yeah. Bring the old man because you're going to be stuck out there for a long time waiting to get that fish.
Man.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Somebody said they take the fish.
Someone said the fish. That's
Guys, this
too
was so
funny.
much fun. We're gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna have one question from the chat, which we asked in the last panel as well, which is so great, which is what's one book you're reading right now or looking forward to reading this summer? Because I know many of you are doing lots of events and might not have as much time for reading as you would like right now. So something you're either reading or looking forward to read, obviously besides each other's books. Aimee, let's start with you.
All right. Well, I love Emma Straub. So like, I'm so excited. I think everyone's probably read this already, but I am so excited. And then The Vanishing Half. I've read that.
Yes.
Oh my
So
God.
these are like, it's like a toss up which one to start first. I'm so excited for both of them.
I love that. Nancy, how about you? What's one book you're reading or looking
I
forward
have
to?
just started Amy's book, The Somerset.
Oh,
And yes. And
Thank you.
yeah. And and I've ordered a lot of books, and Barnes and Noble, I'm sorry, I love our local bookstore. I love it. But sometimes I can't restrain myself. So I ordered a lot of books and they came in a box today. And I wanted so much to open that box, but I thought, oh, I'm loving Amy's book.
Oh,
So it's
Smart.
So that's the book I'm reading and I'm loving.
thank you. I'm waiting for your book to arrive, Nancy. I'm waiting for everyone's books to arrive. I ordered and it just is taking longer in these days, and I wanted to have it.
I know.
I love that. Priscilla, how about you? One book that you're reading or looking for?
Well, I'm on deadline. I have a book due Monday, but I'm listening to. I know. I'm like, I'm listening to Emily's on Audible.
Cool.
I just got to where she goes to the bookstore for the first time, and Gus just walked in, so I still have a lot to listen to. But books that I'm excited about that are coming. Well, one that's waiting on my Kindle is Kennedy Ryan's Queen Move. Is on my Kindle, like telling me to hurry up and finish my book so that I can read hers. So I have that one waiting for me. And then Alexis Daria's You Had Me at Hola comes out August 4th.
Yes.
So I'm excited for that one to auto download.
That's so awesome. How about you, Emily?
I'm actually reading Queen Move by Kennedy Ryan right now, and it's so good.
Oh my
I'm not
gosh,
very
yes.
far in, but it's so good. I haven't read anything of hers before. I've heard her name for forever. And this like cover and title and premise just really called to me. I'm loving it. The other one that I am excited to read is One to Watch. And I had to look it up because I couldn't remember the author's name, Kate Stayman London. One to Watch. So I'm excited for that too. I mean, I'm excited for so many books. Summer is just like a crush of amazing, like perfect summer reads. So there's a long list.
My piles are getting out of control.
It's a good problem, but it does feel like overwhelming.
Ladies, thank you so much, so much for being here today. I wish we could keep talking. We have to get to our next panel at 12:30. But I am so thrilled to meet all of you. You are all just delightful. Your books are delightful. Thank you for writing them. They've brought so much joy to me, and I know to our readers as well. And we could all use a little more joy and happiness right now. So thank you for adding to that. And we're going to go around. I just want to remind everyone to follow them on social media. Please buy their books. It's Aimee Agresti, The Somerset, Emily Henry Beach Read, Priscilla Oliveras, Island Affair, and Nancy Thayer, Girls of Summer. And if possible, we know Nancy, it's okay, we're not judging. Sometime we would love for you to buy them from an independent bookstore if possible. So we're going to go around lightning round, and if you could maybe throw a little shout out to an independent bookstore that you love, please do, ladies. Let's start with Priscilla.
I would say there are two if I can. One is Love's Sweet Arrow. They've been super supportive. They're just outside of the Chicago area. And then down in Key West, Books and Books at the Studio. If you could show them some love, either one of those, that would be great. And thank you to everybody who came, who's in the chat. Thanks so much.
And Emily?
Yeah, Joseph Beth Booksellers in Cincinnati, and I will also add a second, which is The Ripped Bodice in LA. So those two. And again, thank you, everyone. This was so awesome.
Oh, great. Nancy, how about you?
There's a wonderful bookstore on Island called Mitchell's Book Corner, and the people there are wonderful. I adore them. That's my first favorite. My second favorite is a bookstore, independent bookstore on the Cape called Titkin's.
Yes, that's right near my house.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Minutes away from my house. Oh, I'm so glad you said Titcomb's.
so
They're
much.
amazing. I love them. Yeah, that's right. We're near where I live. Oh, yay. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
books.
Live in a beautiful
They have a
place.
great little sailor outside that says open when it's a little
Cute.
colonial man that is carved. Aimee, how about you?
Oh yeah, oh my God, there's so many. I love Loyalty Books here in DC and Maryland.
Yes.
I did my launch with them. They're so wonderful. And then Kramer Books is like an institution in DC. I love them.
So great. Ladies, thank you so much again. Thank you to everyone who joined us. Thank you to Jennifer Entwistle from the Newburyport Literary Fest. Thank you to all of my team members at A Mighty Blaze. Thank you to Leslie Hendrickson, who's behind the scenes, making sure all of this goes smoothly. And thank you once again to our authors, Aimee Agresti, Emily Henry, Priscilla Oliveras, and Nancy Thayer.